Choi Dae-hyun had driven the same route home from his office on Michigan Avenue for 11 years, and in 11 years nothing on that route had ever made him tell his driver to stop the car. Then, on a Tuesday evening in October, he saw a woman sitting alone in the window of a 24-hour diner on the South Side, a spiral notebook open in front of her, working through an accounting problem so dense with variables that his own driver, a man with an MBA he'd never used, glanced at it twice and looked away. She did not look away. She worked through it the way a surgeon works through a procedure they have already performed 1,000 times in their mind. No hesitation, no second-guessing, just the specific fluency of someone whose intelligence had outgrown whatever room it was currently sitting in. Dae-hyun watched her solve the entire problem from the back seat of his car, parked across the street, for 22 minutes. He had built an empire on knowing exactly what he was looking at, within seconds of looking at it. It took him 22 minutes to understand what he was looking at now, and even then, he was not entirely sure he had it right. He only knew one thing with certainty when she finally closed the notebook and looked up, catching his reflection in the diner's window without needing to turn around. He was going to find out her name. If a story like this one already has you, good. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. Now let's get into it. Camille Bennett had stopped believing in coincidence around the same time she'd stopped believing tuition bills eventually worked themselves out. She was 25 years old, born and raised on Chicago's South Side, the oldest of 3 children to a mother who cleaned offices downtown and a father who drove a city bus route that had been cut twice by budget votes she'd watched on the news, with the specific dread of someone who understood exactly what those cuts meant for her family's kitchen table. She had been 3 semesters from a degree in accounting at the University of Illinois Chicago when her financial aid was reassessed and reduced by a clerical error nobody in the financial aid office seemed able to explain, correct, or expedite. The gap it created was $11,000. Her parents did not have $11,000. She did not have $11,000. She had a part-time job at a South Side diner, a 3.9 GPA, and the specific, quiet devastation of watching a life she had built meticulously, semester by semester, come apart over an administrative mistake that would take the university 4 months to even acknowledge. By the time the university admitted the error, she had already withdrawn. Reinstatement meant reapplying for aid from scratch, waiting another semester, and accumulating debt she had spent 3 years specifically trying to avoid. She had made a decision instead. The decision that had brought her to the diner window on a Tuesday evening in October, working through an advanced cost accounting problem from a textbook she had bought used for $6, not because anyone required it of her, but because it was the only thing that still felt like her actual life, instead of the one that had been interrupted. She noticed the black sedan the way she noticed most things, completely, without making a show of it, parked across the street for longer than any reasonable errand required. A man in the back seat who was, unmistakably, watching her. She did not feel afraid. She had grown up in a neighborhood that taught her the difference between danger and simple attention fairly early, and this read as the second. The diner's night manager, an older woman named Gwen who had watched Camille work through textbooks at that same table for the better part of a year, glanced at the car twice through the window and finally came over. "You want me to call somebody about that car, baby?" "I've got it, Gwen," Camille said, not looking up from her notebook. "He's not going anywhere before I finish this problem, and neither am I." Gwen studied her for a moment, then the car, then went back behind the counter, satisfied in the specific way of someone who trusted Camille's judgment more than her own nerves. When Camille finished the problem, a full allocation of joint costs across 4 product lines, the kind of question that separated people who understood accounting from people who had merely memorized it, she closed her notebook, looked directly at the reflection of the car in the window glass, and did not look away. A moment later, the car door opened. The man who crossed the street wore a suit that had never once, in its entire existence, touched a rack in a department store. He was in his 40s, precise in a way that showed in his posture rather than his expression, and he approached her table with the specific economy of a man who did not waste movement on anyone he had not already decided mattered. "You solved that in under 15 minutes, he said. Not a greeting. A statement, delivered the way a man states something he has verified, rather than guessed. I've solved it before, Camille said. The numbers were different. The method wasn't. Most people who understand that method learned it in a classroom with someone standing at the front of it. He glanced at the textbook. The cracked spine, the $6 sticker still on the back cover. You didn't. Not currently, no. Why not? Camille looked at him for a long moment, weighing the specific calculation of how much a stranger in an expensive suit deserved to know about her life. She decided, for reasons she would spend weeks afterward trying to fully articulate, that the honest answer cost her nothing. $11,000, she said. A clerical error the university took 4 months to admit to. By the time they did, I'd already withdrawn. He was quiet for a moment. What's your name? Camille Bennett. Choi Dae-hyun, he said. I own Choi Capital Group, 3 blocks from here, on the 31st floor of a building you've probably walked past 100 times without knowing what happens inside it. I know the building, Camille said. I didn't know it was yours. Most people don't know the things that matter most are usually the ones closest to them, he said. He did not sit down. He did not ask permission to continue standing at her table, and something in the specific confidence of that told her more about him than anything he'd said so far. I'd like to meet your parents. Camille's expression did not change, but something behind it sharpened. Why? Because I don't make offers to 25-year-old women in diners without their family's knowledge, he said. And because what I'm about to propose is going to sound like something it isn't, and I would rather your parents hear it from me directly than hear a version of it from you afterward and have questions I'm not present to answer. What are you proposing? Your education, he said. Finished. Fully. At whatever institution actually deserves what you're capable of, not the one that lost your file. He paused. I don't expect you to say yes tonight. I expect you to let me say it to the people who raised you, so that when you do say yes, it isn't a decision you made alone in a diner with a stranger. We are right in the middle of something that is going to test every boundary this family has ever built. Subscribe and hit the bell. You don't want to miss where this goes. Let's keep going. James and Denise Bennett sat across their kitchen table from Choi Dae-hyun, 3 nights later, in the same kitchen where they had sat with Camille 4 months earlier trying, without success, to find $11,000 that did not exist. James Bennett had spent 22 years driving a city bus, and in 22 years he had developed a specific instinct for reading passengers before they said a word. Who was dangerous, who was desperate, who was exactly what they appeared to be. He read Dae-hyun for the better part of an hour before he said anything beyond the basic courtesies of a host. You understand how this looks, James said finally. A man your age, a company like yours, showing up in our kitchen offering to pay for our daughter's education. I do, Dae-hyun said, which is why I'm here instead of having a lawyer send paperwork. Say the part you haven't said yet, James said, the part where you tell us what you actually get out of this. Dae-hyun considered the question with a stillness that Denise, watching from beside her husband, found more convincing than any answer delivered quickly could have been. I watched your daughter solve a cost allocation problem from the back seat of my car for 22 minutes, he said. I have met accountants with 15 years of experience who couldn't do what she did in that window without a calculator and a second opinion. I run a company that manages other people's money for a living, and I have spent 11 years watching people around me who are competent, ambitious, and forgettable. He paused. Your daughter is not forgettable. I don't know yet what I get out of making sure the world sees that, instead of losing it to an administrative error. I only know that watching it happen anyway was not something I was willing to do. That's not an answer, James said. It's the honest one, Dae-hyun said. I don't have a cleaner version of it. James looked at his wife, then back at the man across his kitchen table. You said Choi Capital Group. I looked it up before you got here. Investment management, real estate holdings, a stake in a shipping concern out of Long Beach. He let that sit. That's a lot of company for one man to run without somebody, somewhere, being unhappy with him. There are people unhappy with me, Dae-hyun said. There are people unhappy with anyone who has built something worth being unhappy about. I won't insult you by pretending otherwise. That's the most honest thing you've said all night, James said. It's the only kind of honesty I have to offer, Dae-hyun said. I don't do performances. I've found they cost more than they're worth. Denise looked at her daughter, sitting quietly at the end of the table, and asked the only question that actually mattered to her. Camille. What do you want? Camille looked at her parents, at the man who had crossed a street to ask her name, at the $6 textbook still sitting in her bag by the door. I want to finish what I started, she said. I don't know yet what the cost of that is going to be. But I know what the cost of not finishing it already was, and I'm not willing to pay that twice. James studied Dae-hyun for a long moment. Full transparency, he said. Every dollar, every arrangement. My daughter doesn't owe you anything you haven't stated plainly, in writing, before she signs a single form. Agreed, Dae-hyun said. I'll have my lawyer draft it this week. And if at any point this stops being about her education, James added, and starts being about something else, I want your word that she can walk away from it clean. No strings, no debt, no consequence for changing her mind. You have my word, Dae-hyun said. In writing, if that makes it easier to trust. It would, James said. One more thing, James said. Are you married? The question sat in the kitchen for a moment. Yes, Dae-hyun said. Does your wife know you're here? Not yet, Dae-hyun said. She will. The kitchen was quiet. James looked at his wife, some silent conversation passing between two people who had been married 26 years, and then looked back at Dae-hyun. Then you'd better be the man you've presented yourself as tonight, James said, because if you're not, we will find out, and it will not go well for you. I would expect nothing less, Dae-hyun said. Still here? Good, because what happens when his wife finds out is not what anyone in that kitchen was prepared for. Subscribe and hit the bell. Let's keep going. Song Yoo-jin found out about Camille Bennett the way she found out about most things in her marriage, through paperwork rather than conversation. An education trust, drafted by her husband's lawyer, naming a 25-year-old woman she had never met as the beneficiary of a full university scholarship, housing stipend, and living allowance. Yoo-jin read the document twice at her husband's desk, in his home office, on an evening he was not home to explain it himself. She was waiting for him when he arrived. Explain this, she said, the document on the table between them. A woman I met has exceptional talent and no way to finish her education, Dae-hyun said. I'm funding it. You've never funded a stranger's education in 11 years of marriage. I've never met someone like her in 11 years of marriage, Dae-hyun said, and understood, the moment the sentence left him, that he had said something true he had not yet fully processed the size of. Yoo-jin's expression did not change, which was, Dae-hyun had learned across 14 years together the most dangerous version of her expressions. You understand what this looks like? I've had that conversation already, with her parents. They asked the same question. And what did you tell them? The truth. That I don't fully know what I'm doing yet, only that not doing it wasn't something I could live with. Yoo-jin was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted into something colder and more precise. Then let me be clear about what I will do, she said. I will not embarrass myself contesting a scholarship for a college student, but I will not sit quietly while my husband builds an entire second life in the margins of this one. And if this becomes what I think it's already becoming, I will make sure every consequence lands exactly where it belongs. Understood, Dae-hyun said. Do you? Yoo-jin said. Because in 14 years of marriage, I have watched you build an empire out of knowing exactly what you wanted before anyone else in the room did. I don't think you've fully admitted to yourself yet what this actually is. I have. That's the difference between us right now, and it's the reason I'm not going to pretend to be reassured by a scholarship document and a kitchen table conversation with her parents. What would reassure you? Dae-hyun asked. Nothing, Yoo-jin said. That's the point. Some things don't get smaller because you name them carefully. They just become easier for the person who named them to live with. Yoo-jin studied him for a moment longer, then left the room, and Dae-hyun sat alone with the specific unease of a man who had just told his wife the truth and found that the truth had not actually settled anything. Camille enrolled at Northwestern's Kellogg-affiliated undergraduate accounting program the following semester, on a transfer scholarship that covered tuition, housing, and a stipend generous enough that she picked up fewer shifts at the diner rather than more. She kept the diner job anyway, not out of necessity, but because she had built her sense of herself around not needing anyone's rescue completely, and some part of her needed to prove, to herself more than anyone else, that the job existed by choice rather than dependence. Dae-hyun did not attend her classes, did not call daily, did not perform the specific over-involvement of a man trying to claim credit for someone else's work. He checked in monthly. At first, a coffee, a question about her coursework, a genuine curiosity about how she was applying what she was learning. He asked about her professors, her study group, the specific frustrations of a curriculum designed for students who had never once had to calculate whether a textbook or a grocery bill took priority in a given week. She found, gradually, that she looked forward to those conversations in a way she hadn't expected and didn't immediately examine. The monthly check-ins became more frequent gradually, the way most things between them happened gradually, without either of them naming the shift while it was occurring. Yoo-jin noticed the frequency before Camille or Dae-hyun fully registered it themselves. She began attending events she'd previously skipped: university donor dinners, corporate galas, the specific occasions where Camille's scholarship might plausibly be discussed, not to support the arrangement, but to observe it. And what she observed over 18 months hardened something in her that had already been brittle for longer than either of them admitted. She made her first direct move in Camille's second year, a call to the dean of students, framed as a donor's concerned inquiry, questioning whether the scholarship arrangement violated any conflict of interest policy, given Dae-hyun's board seat on the university's business school advisory council. The inquiry went nowhere. The arrangement had been structured too cleanly for anything to stick, but it told Camille, with total clarity, exactly what kind of opposition she was now living inside of. She told Dae-hyun about it over coffee, the way she told him most things now, directly, without softening. "Your wife is trying to get my scholarship revoked." Dae-hyun's expression went still, in the specific way it did, when something moved him, that he hadn't yet decided how to show. "I'll handle it." "I don't need you to handle it," Camille said. "I need you to understand that this is what I'm actually risking by accepting your help, not the money, her." "I know," he said. "Do you?" Camille said. "Because from where I'm sitting, you keep saying you'll handle things, and the things keep happening anyway." He was quiet for a long moment. "I married her when I was 26, he said finally, "before I understood what kind of life I was actually going to build, or what kind of person it would require me to become to build it. We have not been a marriage in any meaningful sense for years. I didn't tell you that before, because it felt like an excuse I hadn't earned the right to offer yet." He held her gaze. "I'm telling you now, because you deserve the actual shape of what you're standing inside of, not the version I've been managing around." Camille sat with that for a long moment. "That doesn't make what she's doing acceptable." "No," he agreed. "It doesn't, but it explains why I haven't already ended a marriage that ended, in every way that matters, a long time before I met you. We're one semester away from graduation, and one decision away from everything changing. Subscribe and stay close. You do not want to miss how this lands. Let's keep going." Camille graduated first in her class, 3 years after a stranger crossed a Chicago street to ask her name. The ceremony was not attended by Dae-hyun, a decision Camille had made herself, gently, understanding that his presence would generate exactly the kind of attention neither of them was ready to manage publicly. He sent flowers instead, and a note that said only, "You did this. I only made sure the door stayed open." James and Denise sat in the third row, and when Camille's name was called as valedictorian, her father cried in a way he had not allowed himself to cry since the day the financial aid office finally admitted their error. $11,000, and 3 years too late to matter. Dae-hyun offered her the position 2 weeks later, chief accountant of Choi Capital Group, a role that had been vacant for 4 months because he had been, he told her honestly, waiting to see if she wanted it before he filled it with anyone else. "That's a significant amount of trust for someone 25 years old," Camille said. You solved a joint cost allocation problem from a used textbook in a diner window in under 15 minutes, Dae-hyun said. I have never once doubted your capability. I've only ever needed to confirm you wanted the opportunity enough to take it seriously. I want it, Camille said, but I want to be clear about something first. If I find anything in these books that shouldn't be there, I'm not going to look away from it because of who you are to me. I would fire you on the spot if you did, Dae-hyun said. That's the entire point of hiring someone like you. She found the discrepancy in her 4th month. It was small at first, a vendor account with payment terms that didn't match any contract on file, routed through a shell entity registered in Delaware with no operational footprint Camille could verify. She traced it patiently, the way she traced everything, building the picture one document at a time rather than jumping to conclusions before the evidence supported them. She stayed late 3 nights that first week, cross-referencing invoice dates against delivery logs that didn't exist, service descriptions vague enough to mean anything, and specific enough to pass a cursory glance, the particular fingerprint of someone who had learned exactly how much scrutiny an organization this size typically applied, and had built his fraud precisely inside that margin. By month 6, she had identified 11 separate shell accounts, all connected to the company's chief operations officer, a man named Richard Voss, who had been with Choi Capital Group for 9 years and had, in that time, quietly diverted just under $4 million through inflated vendor contracts. Nobody had thought to audit as closely as Camille audited everything. She brought it to Dae-hyun on a Thursday evening, a folder of documentation thick enough that he understood, before she said a word, that whatever she had found was not a rounding error. Richard Voss, she said, sliding the folder across the desk. 9 years, 11 shell accounts, just under $4 million. I have the paper trail complete enough to survive a forensic audit, because I built it assuming it would need to. Dae-hyun read through it in silence, the specific stillness of a man absorbing a betrayal that had been sitting inside his own company for years without his knowledge. When he finished, he looked up at her. You found this in 6 months, he said. Nobody found it in 9 years. Nobody was looking properly in 9 years, Camille said. I was. He sat with the folder for a long moment. What do you want to do with it? I want to do my job, Camille said, which means I hand you the evidence, and what happens next is yours to decide. But I wanted you to hear it from me directly, the same way I imagine you'd want to hear anything that mattered. Something in his expression shifted, not just at the discovery itself, but at the specific way she had chosen to bring it to him, the deliberate echo of the exact promise he had made her parents 3 years earlier in a kitchen on the South Side. Full transparency, he said quietly. Every dollar, every arrangement. I remembered, Camille said. Richard Voss was terminated the following week, the matter handled through counsel with the specific quiet precision Choi Capital Group applied to everything it did not want discussed publicly. The $4 million began the slow process of recovery through channels Thompson's counterpart at the firm had already begun activating. Camille stayed late that evening, alone in her office on the 31st floor, looking out at a city she had once believed had already decided everything about her future by way of a clerical error 4 months too slow to correct itself. She thought about Gwen at the diner, still working the night shift, still asking if she needed anybody called about a strange car parked too long across the street. She thought about her father crying in the 3rd row of a graduation ceremony, 3 years and $11,000 removed from a kitchen table where he'd demanded a promise in writing. Dae-hyun found her there, just after 8. You should go home, he said. I was thinking about the diner, Camille said, not turning around. About a $6 textbook, and 22 minutes in a car I didn't know was watching me. I think about it every day, Dae-hyun said. She turned to face him then, 3 years, and $11,000, and $4 million recovered dollars, standing between the woman who had solved a problem in a window and the woman standing in an office that belonged to her now, as much as it belonged to anyone. Say what you actually came up here to say, she said. He crossed the room. He did not perform the moment the way lesser men might have. No rehearsed speech, no theater, just the same economy of movement that had first carried him across a Chicago street to ask her name. I love you, he said. I have for longer than I let myself admit, and I am done managing around the truth of it, the way I've managed around everything else that mattered too much to risk. I told your parents in that kitchen that I didn't fully know what I was doing yet. I know now. I've known for a while. I was simply too disciplined a man to say it out loud until I'd earned the right to. Camille looked at him for a long moment. I know, she said. I've known for a while. I was waiting to see if you'd actually say it, or if you were going to keep handling it the way you handle everything else. And now that I have, now we figure out what comes next, she said. Honestly, the way we've done everything else. No performances, no managing around it, no version of the truth that's easier to live with than the actual one. That is where part 1 ends. Richard Voss is gone. The words have finally been said out loud. And somewhere across the city, Song Yoo-jin is deciding exactly how far she's willing to go, now that the thing she warned him about has become the thing that's actually happening. Part 2 is coming. Subscribe, hit the bell, and tell me in the comments, do you think Yoo-jin walks away quietly, or does she make this a war? I read every single one. Don't go anywhere.